Welcome to the Connection Matters podcast. I'm your host, Leona Johnson. In this podcast, we explore the intricate weave of consciousness, empowerment, connection to the sacred, and cultural emergence. I believe that now, more than ever, we're being called to craft a new story, one of community, deep listening, creative potential, cultural repair, and an embodied understanding of the interconnected web of all things. Let's do the work together so that we can move forwards with authenticity and integrity, knowing that we're contributing to a healthy, regenerative culture for future generations. My mission with this podcast is to inspire and empower you to step into this vision for life. Each episode, I'll bring you thought-provoking conversations with leading voices in the field, but you'll also find solo episodes where I dive deep into my passion, connected self-leadership and everyday spirituality, giving you actionable tools to integrate into your daily life. Subscribe now on your favourite podcast platform if you haven't already, and if you enjoy the show, please share it with those who would appreciate it. It really helps when you do. You can also leave a review on Apple Podcasts to help others find us who might need that dose of hope and inspiration. Finally, to get notified straight into your inbox, feel free to sign up to the mailing list in the show notes below. This is also where I share weekly inspirational thoughts and any downloadable freebies that I talk about during the episode. My aim is to serve. I am so grateful that you are here. Good afternoon. I am here today with Asa Baav, a relationship and love coach, and I've been looking forward to this session for quite a while. Asa and I share the same business coach, and we've been aware of each other's work for quite a while now, but we've finally managed to have a conversation. So welcome, Asa.
Thank you so much. And yeah, it's lovely to connect with each other in this space today.
It is, yes. So when I was looking at your website, and from what I know about your work, you work with women to attract secure, conscious love. But I'm curious who you were before you came to become that woman. How did you come to doing this work?
So very different. My life and who I used to be were so different that I actually refer to it as a previous life. So doing what I have done as a love and relationship coach for 7 years is to run one of the largest PR agencies in the UK. So I was commercial director, and I have, since I was really little, been very good at achieving goals. I, from very young age, knew this is what I would love to create, and then I went on to create it. And I continued to do so throughout school, throughout sport, throughout career. And when I hit 30, to make a long story short, I achieved my 6-figure salary, earning 165K. I was the first female director, the first female board member. I was voted into all sorts of PR and communication councils all across the UK. I was launching businesses in New York. And I thought, this is the time when I'm going to feel enough. And I will never forget the day after my highest pay package, which I thought was gonna, heal me. I didn't use those words then, but I thought, no, I'm still feeling like I'm not enough. I still feel like I have to be in a certain way to earn love, if you like, or connection, or a place in the world. And I had a breakdown. It all something that I worked so hard for, all came crashing down. And I started doing inner work because I asked myself, how come I am this incredible woman, yet when I look at, please excuse my French, the shit show of a love life, what's happening? How come I'm so capable in one and it's all just fizzling out to nothing in the other? So this was the two kind of main strands that came together, and I started to really look at, for the first time in my whole life, into my inner world, into, why was I recreating? I didn't have the language for it then, but I do now. Why was I recreating the same patterns, especially in my love life? And again, long story short, I then understood that I had all my life had been a high achiever to be noticed by my dad, to feel enough for my father's love. So that had all the leaky dynamics, as you can imagine, both in money and both in love. And that was how my journey started.
So, without having to divulge too much personal information, but as a typical high achieving woman, what was it that your relationships used to look like?
So my love relationships I was really stuck in what I call unavailable love. I was people pleasing. I was trying to earn love. I was trying to perform love. I was trying to prove to someone, look, I am enough. Yet, because I didn't believe that I was enough, I didn't believe that the love that I wanted was available. I didn't believe that anyone would actually choose me. I, of course, recreated this in my love life. So was always with men who kind of gave me just enough to keep me hooked, to keep me like, oh, maybe this can be something. I guess in today's modern dating world, we call it breadcrumbing. Like, oh, maybe this could be something. But instead of honoring, what do I want? What do I need? How do I want to feel? Is this aligned? I was so obsessed with, if you like, just proving my worth to the man and working like very overdeveloped inner masculine to like, what can I do to fix this in order to feel that I had some form of worth in the doing rather than who I was being. But on the flip side, I did also attract some really lovely men, but I can see from doing the inner work how I was pushing them away. I didn't allow them I didn't know how to receive healthy love. I didn't allow myself to be with someone who was consistent. And of course, we can go into deeper as to why that was as well. But I really found myself on either attracting men that was like, I'm here, I want to love you right, I want to be with you, let me show you I am your man. And I was like, no. And then I went back into those dynamics with men where I had to prove, where I had to, perform, and where I had to essentially be my old self. Very similar again to that dynamic I had with my dad.
So there's two dynamics there. There's the one where you're putting a lot of energy in and it wasn't being received, and then the other when the right person might have been there but you were pushing them away.
Yeah, exactly.
So
But
that's
mostly I was with those who I had to overperform over to. Yeah.
so it sounds kind of like attachment stuff. Is that, do you work with that kind of language
I
and
do.
understanding
Yeah, it's a
attachment?
lot around attachment. Yeah, anxious attached, more secure now, and was attracting avoidant men. Um, long, we might talk about my relationship with David, but he's actually avoidant, but more secure now. But the difference, of course, with him and the other men was that he was willing to do the work. But the one that I was attracting before, I had higher standards. I allowed them to be in their avoidant dynamic, in their unavailable dynamic, because it kind of triggered that part of me that then had a function to be overdoing and proving and performing. So yeah, we were kind of feeding each other's shadow and attachment styles for a really long time.
And then something shifted.
And then something shifted. Well, what was really interesting talking about high achievers as well, I remember the first time I went into therapy and my then therapist, Joanne, and we sat down and I said, right, I want to really get to the bottom of why am I attracted as well as attracting unavailable avoidant men, with some that don't treat me really nice, to put it lightly, and why am I pushing away men ready to meet me? And this is over 10 years ago, maybe longer. And Joanne was like, in her therapy chair, "Also, tell me about your childhood." And I was like, "Joanne, it's got nothing with my childhood. It was a really good childhood." And it was, but still there can be, as we were to discover, and I'm sure many of us, there was so much there to actually unpack. And it was one particular, she must have asked me a question. I must have just answered it. But what she reflected back, she was saying, "Did you know that every single family member that you have described, you describe them as strong? What does that mean to you?" And I had of course, this was a blind spot. And I had no idea, but that was the first thing for me to have a look at. What is my relationship with strength? What is my relationship with weakness? And then I started to really see, I thought having emotions was weak. I thought being vulnerable was weak. I thought saying no was weak because that meant, you don't have enough capacity to be strong and kind of, go getting and so forth. So of course, anything that especially my dad I had unconsciously created as the blueprint for men and for love. And of course, me in relation to that. And I had to really see, I remember taking away, she didn't give it to me, but I remember taking away this action, if you like, to just go to spaces where men was more in the feminine energy, if you like, than the masculine energy men. I was with quite toxic men, but how I was 10 years ago, to just really look at what is coming up for me when I am opposite a man who is quote unquote more feminine. And I even remember saying to her, "Look, I just want to attract a man that I like, wears purple, drinks chai tea lattes," because I think at the time it was the most feminine I could come up with, because the men I was rolling with was, and I'm not saying all these men are avoidant, by the way, but there was like three-piece suits, drinking scotch, closing big deals. It was very, very different energy. And so that became the first strand. But that was a very, very key point. I had to look at my relationship, what I deemed as strong and what I deemed as weak, and that explains so much.
So interesting, because for those of us who, well, in fact, in this culture, it demands that we are really pushing. We are male or female. We're having to work hard just to live these days. And I feel like that dynamic means that we're always kind of in that masculine energy, in that kind of trying to achieve the next thing. And that then means that it's quite difficult for people to switch that off and on and become the people who are able to receive, especially as women. Is that what you see?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And, I work with a lot of women, this was me in the past as well, who felt and feel that they aren't met in relationship. They often feel like they are exhausted by doing it all and holding it all and try to be everything to everybody. And what if we were to look at, okay, how did I consciously or unconsciously create that? It also comes from the very same blueprint of the high achiever and the masculine energy of, we as women in that case are so used to the doing, and we're so good at taking action, and we're so good at seeing, the whole matrix and what plates to pick up and all the spinning plates and so forth. But what this does is that we attract men who really just fits into that dynamic. They almost like unconsciously like, cool, you're gonna do everything, you're gonna do all the heavy lifting, you're gonna do all the emotional regulation, you're gonna do all the XYZ. So it's not that they are a bad person or you're a bad person. It's just two blueprints becoming a match, if you like, and end up often, again, coaching women, they feel very resentful, and this leads to a lot of disconnection. But it's almost like they want to be met, but they unconsciously create dynamics in how they are not met, because they, what you allow will continue, to put it very simply.
Yeah. And I guess once you're in a way of being, it's hard to imagine what it's like not being that.
Yeah. And that also comes back to that many high achievers at some point learned that my value is what I do. I have to, again, like earn or perform love. So I have no value in just simply being me. So we have forgotten that we are, and this is what part of the work is, to like the remembering, like the unlearning, but also the remembering that we are inherently worthy of love and connection and whatever it is that we're calling in, simply by being me. Now, if I choose to do things out of the goodness of my own heart, absolutely, that is that balance. But the disproportionate imbalance, if you like, often comes from that we perceive. So if I have this a lot with women who, okay, well, if I'm just gonna stop doing, or like rebalance this, so if I'm gonna stop doing, if I'm not gonna fix that problem or step in to do that or step into this, who am I? It's like, it's a huge identity initiation, if you like, to relate in a very different way. But of course, this is so deep because, as I mentioned my father many times, that although it was my love life, I had to then go all the way back to my inner child and call her home and be, look, I know this is how you observed the world, but actually, you're enough as you are, and you're loved as you are, and you're worthy as you are. And we do that reparenting, so it felt safe to, I'm gonna let the man do whatever I usually do, so that I can have the experience of receiving. But receiving can feel extremely vulnerable if your whole life have felt, if I am gonna quote unquote sit back and receive and being my feminine, we have to believe that other people can meet us. We need to believe that other people are capable. We need to believe we're not going to be left behind, and so forth. So it is a huge bridge there of trusting humans again, trusting men again, trusting others again.
Yeah, which is a whole journey in itself, isn't it?
Yes.
So when you say secure relationship, if for one who has had lots of quite mismatched relationships, what does a secure relationship actually look like?
So how I explain this in my teaching is that someone with a secure attachment, they had, more often than not, parents don't have to be perfect, but more often than not, in that childhood, they had the experience that when I am my authentic self, I am met and I am loved and I am cared for. I'm still in connection with my parents. And we have had blueprints of that. I can speak up about something and I can get that need met. I can speak up and there can be a conflict and we can resolve that conflict. And we can be in conflict and we can still be in connection. I can say no, I can still be in connection. So that is, again, just very much simplifying this, but that is the imprint of the secure persons imprint. So as they start dating and relating, if you like, they are creating from that different blueprint that it's safe to be my authentic self. It's safe to have needs. And because it's that blueprint, we have practiced what are my needs. It's safe to say no. It's safe to be in conflict. And these four things I would say, when we have a different imprint, that it wasn't safe, to be our authentic self, to have needs, to say no, and to be in conflict, that really becomes challenging in a relationship. Because of course, if we are not our authentic self, then we're trying to be someone else, and the relationship often feels incompatible over time. If I don't speak up about my needs, well, will I ever feel seen and heard in my relationship? If I can't say no, well, how do I know that I don't abandon? And if there can't be conflict, then how many times am I not speaking up because I'm afraid of rocking the boat? So what type of relationship does that create?
Yeah, so interesting. Interesting, because I remember I did quite a long time ago a women's pleasure workshop, and we did an introduction to The Wheel of Consent by Betty Martin. And one of the exercises in that workshop was so simple, but it was so transformative to me. It was where someone would touch, you were in partners, it was all women, and we would touch each other, just on the hand or just on the arm, and we were to really tune in and say no when we wanted it to be a no, not there, no, somewhere else. And they would say thank you when you said no. And it was so interesting, the feeling, the feeling of saying no and the other person saying, thank you for saying no. Thank you for not, for effectively saying, thank you for not letting me waste my time doing something that you didn't actually want. And really, that's something that we never get taught, that when somebody says no to you, they are helping you stop wasting your time or helping you not do something that you think is a good thing.
Yes.
I wish people said no, thank you more often.
Yeah, totally. And it's like another reframe that I give women in there as well. It's like a no to others is a yes to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There is someone, if someone knows who did this quote, please, alert me and I'll start quoting him or her. But this is also because it's, again, we often, as you say, it's like we might have a imprint of like, this is a bad thing. But it's like, if I, as David, my partner is also, he does what I do for men. As we say, all latest in a retreat that we ran this weekend, of it's like, when I can trust you in your no, I can trust you more, because I know, like, where you start and where you begin. Yes. And therefore it creates the clarity of like, okay, well, this is you and this is me. Otherwise I'm going to have to, quote unquote, be responsible for your no. And then I can't really be present because I'm trying to like gauge all the body signals. But, bringing it straight back to, no one was taught this. I know in Sweden, where I'm from, and it rhymes really well in Sweden, so it doesn't really, but anyway, the whole thing is like, they came up with this campaign where they kids, and they were very small, like my niece and my nephew must be like 4 or 5, really little humans. And it's basically know my body, but in Sweden it rhymes. And I remember when my sister told me about this campaign and initiative, I was like, I think there was a tear, because it's like, I just could feel how much my younger self needed to know that. I think I was like a good 30, 31, 32 years old before I knew, it's okay to say no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, again, and then it's information. If you were to say no to me, no, don't touch my hand, please touch my shoulder, and I then collapsed into some shame, or that you're criticizing me, and then I could have a go at you, be like, well, but then there's information to you to be like, is this someone I want to continue in any shape or form to relate with, or even be friends with, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's such, and I see this, we reclaim our power when we reclaim our no. There is so many layers in that no.
Oh, there's so many things I want to say to this. One of the sentences that resonates with me is, just not saying yes doesn't mean you're saying no. So there's a thing there that I think a lot of women, particularly, and maybe men too, I don't know, do. They're not necessarily saying yes, but but they're not saying no. So that gets confused. And the other thing that that I think that is an interest that came from something you said there is a game that I play with my children, which was the yes, no, more game, when I would do tickling their back or at bedtime. And they would say yes or no or more if it was in a good place, or if it was a yes, you can carry on there if you want, or a no means change it. And it's all really about us tuning in and really feeling more what our authentic response is, rather than being in that headspace of doing what we think we're supposed to be doing, or doing what we've done in the past. And so there's a lot of work there, isn't there, of distinguishing between what's familiar because it's something we've done in the past, and what is a no because it's actually not resonating. And sometimes those can be really confused when we're trying to find and attract new relationships.
That is, I am 100% going to steal that from you. With mine is only 20 months still, but he's definitely learned how to say no and more. So that's true. But yeah, to just get really familiar with our own voice, like expressing our truth, essentially. And that is like, it's safe to do, you're creating that secure attachment by like, it's okay to say no, it's okay to say more, it's okay to say yes. And also, like, if we bring that back to high achieving women, a part of the journey that I always go into with women, I've done this myself as well, is to give ourselves permission to slow down, to actually come back to what you said, to feel what is my authentic truth in this moment. Because as again, we are, as high achieving women, it serves us so well in so many areas, but in our love life, it's like it asks for a very different way of doing things. And in work, we often get, it's a high quality attribute to have, to be like, to keep going with something and do things quick and work things out quick. That's something that is celebrated. And again, so it's like taking that permission to doing things so differently in our love life by simply, okay, if you were to ask me a question, can I allow myself, and even taking 15 seconds feels such a radical act of quietness, but to actually feel, what's my preference? What do I think and feel? Is it a yes or no? So that's such a good practice to just start doing. What is my preference in this situation? And it doesn't always have to be in like deep conversation. This can be what you're drinking, what you're eating, what you're wearing, transportation, whatever, to just feel into like, I normally say yes to this, but how am I feeling? What would I need? What would feel good to me? Because it's a muscle that you exercise really in practice, and then it gets these small but potent, transformative little new imprints. Like, it's okay to voice, it's okay to express myself.
So yeah, there's so much in there, and I really love, the way you talk about us becoming more conscious, and obviously that's my work as well, is helping people become connected internally so that they can really lead from that place of alignment. But
yes,
one of the stories that I have carried, which I've worked on and moved on from, but it's related to a previous podcast I did actually with the podcast was called "Where Are All the Men?" And and the reason,
go on that one.
The reason I asked that question is because I've been part of a network of women who have, for the past 20 odd years, we've been doing women's circles, we've been doing our own personal work, we've been looking at our attachment styles and going to therapy. And it's not my experience that there are so many men doing the same amount of deep work. Actually, it feels like a lot has shifted in the last few years, and I'm excited for that, and I'm for the world, and it's, I think it's needed, and as with everything, I'm sure there's a reason for why these things have been the way. But what's your experience of the fact that there are a lot of very conscious women and who are seeming to ask the question, where are all the men?
Yes, it's a question I get very, very often. There is, I know I am in this work and my partner is a men's coach, but something that we do see is the huge shift in men's work, in men's circles, in inner work for men, which is something that, everybody, men as well as women, welcome. And the thing is that conscious men are everywhere. Sometimes we have a lens of maybe what they should look like, what they should sound like, and where they should move, because women move or sound or look in a particular way who's doing the work. So there is a huge proportion of men, and increasingly so, who are doing the work. And there is also a huge portion of men who, if we come back to the pattern of, if I'm stuck in the, it's not safe to be my authentic self or speak my needs or say my no or express myself in a certain way, I will attract men who are not ready to grow, and they will never grow because it's kind of a dynamic that we entertain. So the more that the women do the work around, you know, as you mentioned within yourself, like the consciousness around bringing alignment and really being embodied in our no's, in our boundaries, in like, I'm willing to meet you here, but I'm not willing to meet you here. What I see every time in my coaching is that the men that they attract, maybe they haven't gone to men's circles, maybe they haven't done, like, I can't remember, it's called Sacred Sons, but they are so willing. There are so many men who are so willing and so ready to love a woman right. They might not have been in the work, but they are so willing and ready. So there is a lot of women that have, without effort, initiated their men to go and start therapy. So it's not like my women become their coaches. It's just like, it's almost sending the message with love. Like, if you want to be with me, this is the type of man that you need to become. And when we're no longer in that fixer archetype, if you like, we attract that type of man that is ready to rise. Because then he needs to look at himself. Either I'm rising to meet, because he's true for him, but it's also true for him to be with a woman, or he's like, nah, I thought I really wanted, not the woman, it's not about a woman's worth or anything, but for him, yes, I said I wanted XYZ, but as we said, wanting one and actually having the capacity to create one is two different things. But something that I do see in the world is that, because there is so much talk around the conscious man and the man doing the work, is almost this like we have, or like the masculine embodied man is starting to become a little bit, again, like, what is the assumption in how they look and how they move, when actually there is so many men who maybe some women would deem to be a little bit more feminine, for example, then that is like the masculine embodied kind of poster boy. So it's, again, when we're just like having, like, choosing to believe, this is really important. We have to choose to believe that they do exist, because as with everything in belief systems, if we don't believe it, well, why would I bother dating? So it's like, I choose to believe that this type of man is out there, whether he is doing the work currently or willing to do the work as a result of meeting, we can't be in control of. But the clearer we are, it's like, this is something that is important to me. I choose to believe that this man, and opening our heart to that, is might look radically different from what we thought it was going to look. And I know maybe this can sound a little bit abstract, but again, it's like, we ran a retreat on Sunday, David and I, and it's a mixed group of people, it's men and women, and everyone has different level of experiences. And as to your point, the women that come in there, they're like, where the fuck is the men? And they come out from there, and it was like, oh, they can see their own, facade, if you like, of not seeing it, because they don't look or sound like the man who would, quote unquote, do the work. But we have this thing where it's like, it's a men's circle and then the women witness, and then it's the other way around, which is absolutely, it's like a life-changing experience for people. It's so beautiful. I cry every time. And there we have it again, like another circle of men who is like, they want nothing else but to be the best man they can be. But if we were to put them out there in the world, a lot of women are going to pass them up because they don't look like the poised above, conscious, embodied, masculine man. So it's, again, where it's like, how do I want to feel? What traits would I love? Can I be curious enough as I go out into the world of, opening one's heart 5% more towards that these men could actually be your man? And what high achieving women tend to do is that many can have a wounded relationship with their vulnerability, with their emotional self, with whatever doesn't make them high achieving. And if a man would then embody these, we can actually reject him because we reject him because we believe he's weak, because there is something within ourselves we still perceive as weak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is really deep when you think about it. So yeah, it's an interest. So they do exist. There are more of them. They just move, roll, and sound a little bit different from what maybe how women do, or
Mm-hmm.
where this men's work is at.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's the type of men that my women not just attract, but go on to marry and have children with.
Mm. Oh, there's so much there. And it's inspiring to hear as a woman myself who is now in my mid 40s, single, consciously chosen at this point, but because I've got a full life and children who are in their teen years, so they need a lot of me right now. And I'm building my business, and I'm da 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 da. I've got a life, community, and everything. But how do I know if I'm independent in a healthy way, or if I'm subtly guarded from opening to receive?
That is such a powerful question. What comes to me to give an example around is, what do I need from a man, for example, to feel safe? Or what do I need from a man to feel met? And something to check in with oneself is, where are we not kind of sitting in the void for long enough for him to actually step? And I'm not talking months and years and decades, it might be like days, it might be 5 minutes in a conversation. Where am I with my old pattern going in to be like, this is easier if I do it myself? Or I don't trust is like 99% of women who comes into my world. And I did this reel, I'll send it to you, maybe you can add it to, because it's just like really just hit the nail on the head. I think it's an image, like it's a clip from Modern Family or whatever, but it's like 99% of women come into my world because they want the man to lead, and they want to feel this interdependence, healthy them, healthy man, healthy connecting. But is that, no, don't lead like that. No, not in this timing. No, not in this way, because we've been so used to doing it ourselves for a really long time. And we know we can do a really good job. And sometimes to the hyper independent, it can be like, well, if I just did it, it'd just be easier. I know it's going to get the results that I want. But these are the kind of strand to start to look at, like, okay, well, he's 100% not going to lead the way that you want him to. But what if like you mentioned magic when we spoke earlier, what if in him leading, something is almost like the maiden archetype? Let me just look at this as if it was for the first time I've ever experienced something, and just be in awe of what's the best that could happen, although he leads in a very different way. Like, I give an example. I had a client who they went through this dynamic as well. So they live in Liverpool, they were going down to London, and she was like, this is good. Normally she just arranges everything, make sure everything, the travel schedule, etc. And she was like, well, this will be good. Why don't you lead in this one? He was like, yeah. And they ended up catching the first train, but then they were late for something else, and they basically like missed a connection train. And she was like, oh, this is what happens when I don't do all the thing. But anyway, he was like, don't worry. She just like regulated her annoyance. And he said, we're gonna take the tube instead of this connection train or whatever. And as they stood on the platform, they bumped into one of their best friends when they used to live in Switzerland. And they were like, oh my God. So they just had this beautiful little reunion, the four of them. And because they had time, they actually could chat for a good, 10, 15 minutes. And she was like, that was so nourishing to me. Like, that woman was very, very close friend that did not know, because they were just passing through London. And again, they only was late to the event by like half an hour event. I think they were seeing friends, but it was only half an hour. And we were joking about it, to say, yeah, he didn't lead, you were late half an hour, but in the end of the day, all is well. But how beautiful, you bumped into some friends, and that actually really nourished your soul in a way you really needed to, and no one else would have been able to do in the same way. I was like, look at that. So there can be lots of beautiful surprises in someone doing something in the way that they lead. I'm not saying men are always going to be late, but hopefully this analogy works.
Oh yeah. So my next question, where I'm curious, is about life stages, how people meet people. Well, there's two strands here, actually. How do people meet people generally? Obviously, we're in different times to how we were, just 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And what's the difference between how people meet each other when they're younger, in their 20s maybe, or early 30s, and then for people who are, 40s and onwards? Is there a difference? People who've got busy lives, maybe children, different types of work. And what do you see and what do you know?
So there is new research coming out that I think they're like below 25, that they're actually coming off the apps. So they were really on the apps, but they're coming off the apps, because they want and value the human connection, which we all do. But I think they're just like, no, I'm going to double down. But the majority still meet people on dating apps. I would say 80% of my clients have met their man on dating apps. Hinge is really popular. I would say that it's almost like the one that people go to in the women that I work with. But also what we've really seen is a huge upswing in in-person event, because a lot of people feel the strain of swiping and creating conversation and then not sure where they're going to go, and they become quite exhausted. But still, the number one is through dating apps. As I said, we see in different ages, as some are using them less and some are using them more. But there are also way more in-person supper clubs, speed dating, and there is like sauna community meetups, like run community meetups. So there is much more people who's like, this is a hobby of mine. So not necessarily maybe like a single event, but it's like much more community focused. So yeah, that is the trends that we see. And it's like as everything from where we create from. If I don't really believe that evolved conscious men exists, then I'm not going to get as inspired to start dating and connecting, should we say. But it's exactly the same on apps. It's like I always give women these little practice to energetically, like, just for 20 seconds, 30 seconds before opening the app, I'm going to do this intentionally. Like, I choose to believe that the man for me is out there. I'm going to take 5 minutes and swipe, because I have all these other commitments, that we work it into one's flow, instead of feeling like, okay, well, now I'm going to have to spend time that I don't really have. So like, work it into a flow that works for you, but also really as everything from what place are you creating. So even it's like, I choose to believe that the man who can insert what would make him feel aligned, I choose to believe, then we can't guarantee that he's going to be on that app or in that dating event. But as we know, with conscious creation, is letting go of the how and the when, and being in the end result and taking aligned action. And then whether you meet him through an app or the dating event or a running club or at your local coffee shop, we can't control that. But it's like the game of, as I say to women, is about creating opportunities for connection. And why people go to dating apps, unless you are my partner who loves being on apps and loves dating, the majority of people, they don't. But it is an efficient way, if you like, because there are other singles on there. So this is a good way, even though it's not the preferred way of many.
Oh, I mean, from a personal level, not as a podcast host here, the idea of being on dating apps makes me just go, oh, I feel really old fashioned, and yeah, probably I feel like I am way too all sorts of things to actually get any of that across on an app. And it's really interesting, my physical response to going,
Mm.
ah! I have tried in the past. I sort of loaded loaded up a little bit of a profile, and within a few minutes of me finishing it, got a few hi, and then I went, oh no, and deleted it all, and was like, off.
Yeah, yeah. And you know,
And it
there's
was a really strange process. But yeah, I guess if that's the way people are doing it, because we're not out and about in the way that we were, lots of people work from home, you don't meet people at work anymore, or, you know, I don't know what's changed, because what did we ever do before apps existed?
yeah. And you know, a lot from like meeting through family, meeting through friends, meeting at work, and things have shifted, haven't they? Not only because more people, as you said, work from home, but also it's not the same family meetups or friend meetups as it was before. You know, it has changed. It's not like it doesn't happen. It's just that I don't know the exact percentage, but they do go down. And I had someone who exactly how you experience in one of my clients. I'm holding her in, you know, looking at the profile and just like small steps, because she experienced what you experienced last year. And she was like, I was on there for 5 weeks, and it's just like all it did was making me feel dysregulated. So again, we're just like back, because as I said, the majority of people, they don't like being on apps. It's like, you know, my coach is like, no one likes fucking with Facebook ads. It's just a means to an end, you know, with all the love. There is like, it is a platform, there are men and women there who are single and they want to connect. And yeah, as with every space, there could also always be some little percentage who say one thing and they actually mean another, or they're there for the thrill or whatever. But the majority of people are single and really want to connect. And it is hard to get our whole personality and life and vibe across. And it's just like, let it be enough to connect with someone through pictures. So important how we communicate about, you know, using like the conversation prompts, etc. But then you can carry who you are in the conversation, of course, when you do meet up. So it's a little bit like, okay, well, can I be with that? Sitting with the uncomfortability on an app is something that I'm willing to do in order to meet my person. You know, again, they're like a decision in there, but most of the people feel a little bit like you. So it's like holding that emotional tension, and just like, okay, you know, and if people, all they say is like, hi, maybe you have as a, you know, boundary, if you like, to only engage with people that have sent a little bit more than that. For example, you might have like, if someone hasn't written a lot about them, there might be a thing for you to, I'm not going to contact them. And you know, there is also learning how to send really high converting first messages to actually just really attract your person as well. So there is a lot we can do, but it is that first hurdle of actually downloading an app. And if it's an absolute no-go, again, there is much more speed dating, meetups. You know, I know it's hard with time. Again, there is so much more community. So as I always say, like, whatever you're into, there is a community for that. And who knows what will happen. One of my latest clients, Holly, she met her man in a running club. Literally before the work that we done, she could not see him. This was so fascinating as well. He had always been there, but because she'd been so focused on reenacting the old dynamics and blueprint, he was a bit too stable and secure and consistent for that version of her. And as we did that work, she was like, there you are. And they became a thing. And they're now in a relationship and have been for nearly a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do hear happy stories
Happy stories.
coming
Yes.
in more and more, you know, these days. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because we can tell ourselves certain stories. You know, for me, mine is, well, you know, by the time I get by my age, everybody's either paired off or not good enough to be in a sustainable relationship, so they're out, and not really the ones that you want. But there's all sorts of reasons why people at this age may or may not be in relationship, and it's interesting, just having this conversation, how many thoughts are going through my own mind about the judgments I have and stories. So, but there was another thing I was going to respond to. Oh, yes, community. Because I feel like in general, I'm experiencing it too with the people that I work with, that what people are wanting is in-person contact again. For a while, especially since lockdown, everything has gone online and people have become part of courses and online communities and, connected globally with people on the other side of the world, which has been a real novelty and really amazing. But in the end, what we're missing is that in-person contact and connection with people that we might not get to meet otherwise. And just that coming together with people who have shared interests and passions and likes is the way really that we're going to find people in our vicinity. Not that that's always has to be the way, but where we can actually build a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I see the same. People really wanting to be in the physical space together. And this is also, even though I'm very good at helping women, be quote unquote successful on dating apps, even though we focus like 5% on dating apps and 95% in relationship of self, which is also so interesting to see that it's not really about the app. It's all about, the self. But I have always been really good at meeting people in person. Apps was not for me. I didn't have like a constricted, like, oh, get off, but it just didn't feel like it kind of worked for me. And where I also like that we're reverting back to more community and slowing things down a little bit more is because, again, I mentioned photos with profiles. And I don't think, like, the men I've been with were very attractive to me, but also like on photo, would I have swiped for them? I don't know. It's just like David did a little bit of experiment with one of his clients, so I got to see a little bit about some male profiles, and it's just like they all, I don't know how to explain, but it's like the top performing profiles are these like six-pack, big, muscly men. They're like ripped as anything. And I'm like, really, is this, they are the top performing. So even though we say what we want, obviously, yeah, it would be lovely for someone to look after the health and so forth. But it's again like that feel, I was like, why are these the highest performing? So it's again a lot of men who are still, very handsome and look after their health and eat really well and, very conscious, doing the work. They just don't get the light of day because we all, to some extent, are kind of attracted to a certain look. Obviously, this is like huge culturally as well. So what I love about community is also we get to connect with the human.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we have connected over something, then to that person, they become really attractive. And who knows if it was a dating app picture, would we have swiped or not? Yeah. We don't know. But get my point.
So true. So true. So if someone listening recognizes their own survival patterns and their own behaviors here in what you describe in terms of, avoidant or anxious or, attracting unavailable love and repeating patterns, where do they begin whenever they are looking to change something, to make that decision? Okay, I'm ready now. What shift could someone make to?
Yeah. So the most important thing that we can do is to get really clear on what is the main pattern that I can track in relationship that is got to do with me. So I give that example of myself as an anxious attached. I used to attach really quickly. I used to connect really quickly because there was a fear if I don't, then I'm going to lose connection. So this is like winning the $1 million lottery. So for me, that was very important to be like, if my pattern is that I speed everything up, I need to start slowing everything down. And although I am available to meet up, I'm going to practice not meeting up that weekend and preserve that for friends instead of forgetting about my life and becoming, over focused on my partner, for example, or my person I've started to date. So it's very important to, what is the main pattern? How has it played out? And what is the earliest sign that you're still in it? And then it's very important to really get clear on, what is it that you really, really want? Like, what is it that you would love? And why is that important to you? And again, because then when we naturally future focus towards what it is that I want, then limiting beliefs and fears are going to naturally bubble up to the surface anyway. If I have a practice of connecting with my vision every week, for example, and I say I would love to attract a man that is whatever is important and build a life that whatever feels in alignment, and you start to feel that contraction, well, then what is the story? I believe it's not really available. I believe I've left it too late. I believe I'm too old. Well, then we go back into understanding what gets to be released in order to open your heart more. So understand the key pattern or patterns. What is it that you truly want? And a huge part in all of this as well is nervous system regulation practices, because it's all very easy for me to say that we're all in the game of making different choices. If I used to speed everything up, I'm going to slow everything down. But if that is a blueprint that it is unsafe to slow down, to be present, to feel, I'm never going to do it, although all the books and relationship coaches in the world will point towards that pattern. So as we create different choices, effectively make different patterns, we create different blueprints, you're going to have to bring your body with you. We're going to have to do this from like a reparenting the inner child from the conscious woman, to create inner safety, that it is safe to do things differently in order to create a different outcome. And what I used to say in the 3, it used to be, which is still true, around like allow yourself to receive, but actually that will come naturally when you've done the nervous system work. Because you're nervous. I'll give a quick example. One of my clients last year, and all she really wanted was a secure, confident, secure, committed, healthy man. And she was attracting the opposite, but then we did the work and she started to attract different type of men. And then it was one she connected with, and he was like embodied in his masculine, wanted the same vision. She had a fear. She spoke it really early. He was so reassuring, did the whole arranging the date. When she arrived to the date and she was going through the date, but she said to me afterwards, my whole body was like, run away. And I said, did he do anything? Did something happen? And she said, no. It was just so confronting to sit with what she wanted. I don't know if he would have been the one, but he was the embodiment of many, many things that felt super, super aligned, but she had never experienced. And then it was another journey that started. Do I really believe I'm worthy of this type of man? Can I be with? So it's all about that receiving, but the nervous system will support that anyway.
Gosh, it's a lot, isn't it? There's a lot going on there.
It's so many facets.
So you say that 84% of your clients enter a relationship within 12 months of working with you. So
yes.
in those people, what is it that actually shifts? Are they becoming different, or are they choosing differently?
Well, it's kind of what you just said. Because they become different, they choose different. But it's always the self that comes first. So as I mentioned, although I can hold women in, okay, I'm going to start dating, can you have a look at my profile? I can do that. And I do that. It is only like 5 to 10% of the work. The majority of the work is about the relationship with self, is around looking at these blueprints. It is around the reparenting. It is around the nervous system. And because of that, you do choose differently. But what I always say to women is so important to hear, that when we say, in who you're becoming, it's not about becoming someone that you don't recognize. It's about reclaiming your authenticity, your truth, your expression, and that is you become, I give the analogy, like you become a lighthouse. Imagine you're a lighthouse and you shine your light bright. And the more rooted you are in your authenticity, the brighter the light and the easier it is for other people to find you. I guess it's like a manifestation analogy. So yeah, the majority of the work, relationship with self, of course, we get to look at our relationship with our mother. Our relationship with the father is a huge part as well. And relationship with men. You know, the first book that I bought in therapy was How to Date Men When You Hate Men, because there was so much trauma in my previous life. So I was like, fuck these people. Excuse my friends. But it's like I wanted to be held by a masculine, but I was like, this is really unsafe for me, because my earliest experience was like, if I do that, I get hurt. I'm going to have to close myself off. It is not safe. So we have to also look at the relationship we have with men, with the masculine, with our inner masculine, you know. But yeah, once you change within, you create different without, outside yourself.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, there's so much there. And so much hope as well. And I think, it's clear that what you're saying is that security within self enables us to choose from a different place, enables us to attract energetically in a way that we might not be if we haven't done that real conscious awareness, connection, peace. And obviously it helps to have somebody to help us through that process.
Yeah, I need to, like, this is why I have coaches as well, right? To help us see our blind spots, to
So how
be held.
Yeah. So how would somebody what do you offer in terms of how people can explore this with you?
Yes. So I work with women in two different ways. So it's one-to-one coaching. So this is, I'm sure lots of people know what one-to-one coaching is. It's a completely tailored journey to that individual. And I work with women for 6 months or 12 months. And I also work with women in community. So I run a 12 months course called Attract Love. So this is because I've been doing this work for 7 years now. So I have looked at the most powerful and life-changing transformation and teaching that happened in my one-to-one, and I've then distilled it into a 12-week journey, if you like. But it's also me showing up live. So it's like part going through it, but I'm there to do live group coaching in Telegram. So you can reach me every day if you want to, oh, this feels really major. How do I move from A to B? Or just want to be seen and witnessed. So that's the two different ways that I work. It's kind of similar teaching, but one is, from the 7 years of one-to-one, and one is completely tailored to the woman. What I have found, I'm sure you as well, in community, that not just being held and guided by me, but being with other women is also, again, as we reparent and we become our authentic self and we express our truth, to be witnessed by other heart-centered women. There is a lot of patterns that gets healed because we're in community, that then they feel even safer to express outwardly in their dating journey as well. But yeah, that's how I work with women currently.
Sounds juicy, very rich, and I think sometimes just because in these times we're so busy, there's so much going on, just having that someone to hold your hand whilst you're stepping into something can just be so powerful, and is so needed to help you see your blind spots, to reflect back, what how you're behaving and what might help in shifting.
Yeah, and it can feel such it's another, I did a session with someone last week around the inner child. She's also very much on a journey of attracting her man, but also becoming secure within herself. And part of that is the inner child work. And she was holding it off and holding it off and holding it off. And I was like, and then we did that session together. So it's also that holding, because she was so nervous. Like, people come to me because they want the change. And yet it can feel, which is very normal, can feel so confronting, because we are effectively going into the unknown. And as human beings, the unknown is unfamiliar, is dangerous. So to just like, I have women who, cry as they say yes, happy tears, and feeling a little bit scared. There's like, things are gonna shift and move all towards what I want, but I realize there will be a change, and the majority of people, want change but also fear it. And I think that's very, very normal. So just knowing that on the other side is like, and I've done this thousands of times, so I'm not complacent. I just know, I can see immediately why someone is single. I did this last year. In half an hour, I'll show you why you're single and what to do about it. I might bring you back because I see straight away, because I do this. And then, so like, that's become a little bit of a thing this year. Like, let me make it easy. I'm not saying inner work is easy. It is confronting at times, not all the time, but, let me guide you through so it's easier to make this year you meet your man, but not just any man, your man, aligned man.
Oh, well, makes me think we should have a little chat after we've hit record.
Yeah, let me tell you why you're single and what to do about it.
So I finally, something that's come to me, and, maybe we might have talked about this before, but we've talked a lot about male and female relationships, but obviously there's lots of different kinds of relationships. Yes. And who people want to be with. How does all this work translate to different kinds of relationships?
I only have coached heterosexual women. So I don't have, as a coach, I coach heterosexual women, and David coached heterosexual men. I think it's been a few women and men in our community that is not. But again, like the patterns and the blueprint, relationship skills, how we relate, that doesn't matter, whether how you identify, your sexuality. It is the core blueprints that happens in humans when we're really, really, really little. And then if we're not aware, they are going to be the one that chooses love and men and women, or however we identify for us. So they are all, that's the same. Of course, how we relate, that might be, different dynamics, for example, that comes up that doesn't come up in a heterosexual relationship. But when it talks about attachment style, blueprints and belief system, that they are all universal to human beings.
Yeah, and it's about that security within self that enables us to either be someone that's relatable to or not, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, wow, there's a rich conversation there. Thank you so much, Asa. I've really appreciated talking with you. It's given me lots of food for thought in my own life, even though I'm here as a holder of space for others. I hope that this conversation is rich for all of you listening, and do know that if you check the show notes and click through to the blog, there'll be a lot more information, how you can connect with Asa's work. There's a link to a freebie and to Asa's website. So thank you, Asa. Any final words before we finish today?
The final words.
No pressure.
Well, it's what I want women and men, what I want everyone to know is that we do have more power than we give ourselves credit for to consciously create our destiny, if you like, our vision, our life. Sometimes it can feel like, if this is a pattern I've been in, like, when is this going to end? Are things ever going to shift and change? And sometimes we can start to feel like maybe a little bit hopeless, or like, what do I do? But I want to just speak to that part, that there is so much more than we can see, and so much more than we currently know is available for us. And again, when we're in our own life and our own mind, again, there are the blind spots that maybe we can't see, but there is so much more that you have power over than you currently believe that it is.
Ooh. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. Love having this conversation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Connection Matters podcast. I hope today's episode inspired and empowered you to deepen your connection to yourself, others, and the world around you. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to subscribe, share it with those who might benefit, and leave a review. It really helps others to discover the podcast. You can also join our mailing list to stay updated with new episodes, inspiring thoughts, and free resources designed to support your journey. Together, we can build a more connected, compassionate world, one conversation at a time. Until next time, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep creating the future that you want to live in. Go well, beautiful human.